YouTubers, Pastor Bob. Well, I hope you all are having a blessed week. Hey, I want to talk to you about something. You know, I went through the book of John, and when I got to the book of John, there's always a couple things at the end of that book that I find fascinating, and I wanted to share them with you this morning. We get to the point in the story where Judas goes to betray Jesus. He goes to the chief priests and he says, hey, when there's no crowds around, I'll come get you and I'll let you know, and you can arrest him. And he got paid his 30 pieces of silver, and he was a happy little camper. And we take up our story in John 18, 3-6. It says, Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said unto them, Whom seek ye? And they answered, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. As soon as Jesus said unto them, I am he, they went backwards and fell on the ground. Now this band of men and officers from the chief priests, Jesus had, beside himself, he had 11 disciples and a lot of other people with him. So there was probably between 70 and 100 men, armed temple guards that came out to arrest him, 70 to 100. And the minute Jesus said, I am he, they got hit with a force. Now these are armed men. They got hit with a force that leveled every single one of them. And it was so powerful that it literally just freaked them out. So they're knocked down. And they realized at that very moment they were not in control of the situation. And Peter thought, hey, this is cool. He sees them all get knocked down. What does Peter do? He takes out his sword and whacks off one of them's ear. And I'm sure that Peter was aiming for his head and missed and got his ear. So listen, these men, what did they do? 70 to 100 armed men. One guy, Peter, takes out his sword and cuts off the guy's ear. Did they get up and grab their weapons and fight back? No, they didn't. Because whatever force hit them literally had them paralyzed. They didn't respond because they weren't in control. God was. This is something you have to remember. You plus God is always the majority. You plus God, God is always in control. So Jesus gets arrested, and the following morning he's standing before Pilate. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, You say that I'm a king, and to this end I was born. For this cause I came into the world, that I should bear witness of the truth. Every one that is of the truth hears my voice. Pilate said unto him, What is truth? Pilate was looking truth right in the eye, and he didn't even know it. So Pilate responds to the crowd in John 18:38. He says, I find no fault in this man at all. I mean, Pilate goes to question him. Pilate's used to questioning murderers, people that are accused of stealing, hurting people, rape, you name it. And this guy, they said he's the king of the Jews. And Pilate's like, it's not much of a crime. So Pilate says, I don't find any fault in him. And then what happens after this? Pilate's wife sends him a message, a little note. She wrote out a little note, folded it up, and sent it to him. And it said, have nothing to do with that righteous man, because I had a dream about him last night. And what Pilate's wife was basically saying is, listen, this is a righteous man. Don't be bringing a curse down on us. And Pilate was thinking, I need to get rid of this whole situation. So we go on with John 19, 6-8. This is what it says. When the chief priests, therefore, and the officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate said, You take him and crucify him. I find no fault in him. And they answered, We have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. And when Pilate heard that, he became even more afraid. So here we have Pilate is freaking out. He has this note from his wife saying, look, I had a dream. You mess with this guy, you're going to bring a curse down on us. So Pilate is looking, how do I get out of this? So then the chief priests, they pulled their final card and they said, from henceforth Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, if you let this man go, you are no friend to Caesar. Whoever makes himself a king is against Caesar. And with that statement, Pilate's hands were tied. So Pilate spoke to the crowd one more time. He said, behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. And Pilate said to them again, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. So the Jews got what they wanted. And remember, Pilate washed his hands. He said, I washed my hands of this whole thing. And what did they say? He said, his blood's going to be on you. And they said, his blood be on us and our children. They brought a curse down upon themselves. And look what happened. Roughly 30 years later, Titus comes down, besieges Jerusalem, 70 AD. He destroys their city and disperses them all over the known world. And that curse carried on all the way down through the Muslim hordes, and then on down to Adolf Hitler and him gassing all the Jews in the death camps. All because of that curse they called down on themselves. So we're all done. Jesus is crucified, and Pilate does one more thing. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh unto the city. And it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And the chief priests went to Pilate and said, write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I'm the King of the Jews. God was in full control. And Pilate said to the chief priests, he said, what I have written, I have written. There was the King of the Jews hanging on that cross. And all the Jews that afternoon were looking up there at their Messiah. And it said right above his head who he was, the King of the Jews. People, through this whole thing, from the time that Judas went into the chief priests and betrayed him, to the arrest in the garden, Jesus saying, I am he, and knocking 80 or 70 to 100 men flat, where they couldn't even respond with their weapons when Peter cut off a guy's ear. All the way to the trial in front of Pilate. During this whole time, God was always in control. God is completely in control. People, I wanted to tell you this story because of this. We don't know what's happening, what's going to happen now after this coronavirus. When the states get going again and everybody starts working again, we may have a second incursion of this coronavirus that might be 10 times worse than the first. And if not, there'll be another plague that comes pretty soon. I mean, whatever reason they're spraying the skies, whatever 5G is going to do to us, all the things that are coming, we're right at the beginning of all the horrendous things of Revelation breaking out. But people, none of that matters. None of it matters. Because God is in control. God's always in control. No matter what happens, God's in control. You need to remember that. When things start getting scary, when everything starts imploding, no matter what happens, God is in control. Anyway, I just want to give you something to think about. Heaven or hell, you choose. Just remember, once you take your last breath, it's a done deal.
Yeah, there's a lot of fish in there. These houses right here that back up against this water, they're probably $500,000 more than the regular house. Let me make a quick video right here. YouTubers, Pastor Bob, this is the new house I bought with my church's money. Thank you. How you doing today? Good.